Hello guys, in this time I'm going to be reading for you about an interesting topic. So let's start. You are not your mind. The greatest obstacle to enlightenment. Enlightenment, what is that? A beggar had been sitting by the side of a road for over 3 years. One day a stranger walked by, spared some change, mumbled the beggar mechanically, holding out his old baseball cap. I have nothing to give you, said the stranger. The, then he asked, what's that you are sitting on? Nothing, replied the beggar. Just an old box. I have been sitting on it for as long as I can remember. Ever look inside? Asked the stranger. No, said the beggar. What's the point? There's nothing there. Have a look inside, insisted the stranger. The beggars managed to pry open the lid. With astonishment, disbelief, and elation, he saw that the box was filled with gold. I'm the stranger who has nothing to give you and who is telling you to look inside. Not inside any box, as in the parable, but somewhere ever close inside yourself. But I'm not a beggar, I can hear you say it. Those who have not found their true will, which is the radiant joy of being and the deep, unshakable peace that comes with it, are beggars, even if they have great material wealth. They are looking outside for a scrap of pleasure, of fulfillment, for validation, security, or love, while they have a treasure within that not only includes all those things, but is infinitely greater than anything that the world can offer. The word enlightenment conjures up the idea of some superhuman accomplishment, and the ego likes to keep it that way. But it's simple your natural state or of felt oneness with being. It's a state connected with something immeasurable and indestructible, something that almost paradoxically is essentially you and yet is much greater than you. It's finding your true nature beyond name and form. The inability to feel these connected gives rise to the illusion of separation from yourself and from the world around you. You then perceive yourself, consciously or unconsciously, as an insulated fragment. Fears arise and conflict within and without becomes an order. I love the Buddha's simple definition of enlightenment as the end of suffering. There is nothing superhuman in that. Is there? Of course, as a definition, it's incomplete. It only tells you what enlightenment is not suffering, but what left where when there is no more suffering. The Buddha is silent on that, and his silence implies that you will have to find out yourself. He uses a negative definition so that the mind cannot make it into something to believe in or into a superhuman accomplishment, a goal that is impossible for you to attain. Despite this precaution, the majority of Buddhists still believe that enlightenment is for the Buddha, not for them, at least not in this lifetime. You use the word being. Can you explain what you mean by that? Being is the eternal ever present one life beyond the myriad forms of that are subject to birth and death. However, being is not only beyond but also deep within every form as in enormous, invisible and indestructible essence. This means that it is accessible to you know as your own deepest self, your true nature. But don't seek to grasp it with your mind. Don't try to understand it. You can know it only when the mind is still. When you are present with your attention fully and intensely in the now, being can be felt, but it can never be understood mentally. To regain awareness of being and to abide in that state of feeling realization is like enlightenment. When you say being, are you talking about God? If you are, then why don't you say it? The word God has become empty of meaning through thousands of years of misuse. I use it sometimes, but I do so sparingly. By misuse, I mean that people who have never even glimpsed the realm of the sacred, the infinitive vastness behind the word, use it with great conviction, as if they knew what they are talking about, or they argue against it as if they knew what is that they are denying. The mission gives rise to absurd belief, assertion, and egoic delusions such as my or our God is the only true God and your God is false. The Nietzsche's famous statement, God is dead. The word God has become a closed concept. The moment the word is uttered, a mental image is created, no longer perhaps of an old man with a white beard, but a still mental representation of someone or something outside you, and yes, almost inevitable, and make someone or something. Neither God nor being nor any other word can define or explain the ineffable reality behind the word. So the only important question is whether the word is is a help or hindrance or inability to experience the third way which it points. Does it point beyond itself to the transcendental reality, or does it lend itself so easily to becoming no more than an idea in your head that you believe in a mental idol? The word being explains nothing, but nor does God. Being, however, has the advantage that is an open concept. It doesn't reduce the infinity invincible to a finite entity. It's impossible to form a mental image of it. Nobody can claim exclusive possession of being. It's your very essence, and it's immediately accessible to you as the feeling of your own presence, the realization I am that is prior to I am this or am that. So it's only a small step from the word being to the experience of being. What is the greatest obstacle to experiencing this reality? Identification with your mind, which causes thought to become compulsive. Not to be able to stop thinking is a dreadful affliction, but we don't realize it because almost everybody is suffering from it. So it's considered normal. This incessant mental noise prevents you from finding the realm of inner stillness that is inseparable from being. It also creates a false mind-made self that casts a shadow of fear that ends suffering. We will look at all that in more detail later. The philosopher Descartes believed that he had found the most fundamental truth when he made his famous statement, I think, therefore I am. He had in fact given expressions to the most basic error to equate thinking with being and identity with thinking. The compulsive thinker, which means almost everyone, lives in an state of apparent separateness is an easily conflicts with all of continuous problems and conflict, a word that reflects the ever-increasing formation of the mind. Enlightenment is a state of wholeness of being at one, and therefore at peace. As lives unmanifested at one being enlightenment is not only the end of suffering and continuous conflict within and without, but also the end of a dreadful enslavement to incessant thinking. What an incredible liberation is this! Identification with your mind creates an opaque screen of concepts, labels, images, words, judgment, and definitions that blocks all true relationships. It comes between you and yourself, between you and your fellow man and woman, between you and nature, you between you and God. In this screen of truth that creates the illusion of separateness, the illusion that there is you and a totally separate other, you then forget the essential fact that underneath the level of psychical appearance and separate forms, you are one with all that is by forget. I mean that you can no longer feel this oneness as a self-evident reality. You may believe it to be true, but you no longer know it to be true. I believe may be comforting only through your own experience, however, doesn't become liberating.